People who remember names after hearing them once. How do the rest of us learn this sorcery? I have a good rememberer and a bad forgetter. I find it easiest to think of something silly in your head. Met a guy called Jeff, he was a chef. Jeff the chef. The sillier the better really, just remember their name is Jeff and not chef. It's easy if you like names and find them interesting. Sometimes I am embarrassed that I remember someone's name so well, especially if they don't recall mine. It can feel a bit intimate and direct to call someone by name so soon, but most people seem to appreciate it. On the other hand, I am really bad at recognizing faces. My lifelong friends are identical twins, and it's only now in my late 20s that I can tell them apart without taking their outfits and mannerisms into consideration, because their hair colors are different. I don't know you, but I need to know you in order to sell to you. That is why I have asked you to go around and tell me your names. I have an amazing mnemonic device, by which I have memorized all of your names. Shirty, Mole, Lazy Eye, Mexico, Baldy, Sugar Boobs, Black Woman. I have taken a unique part of who you are, and I have used that to memorize your name. Baldy, your head is bald. It is hairless. It is shiny, it is reflective like a mirror. Your name is Mark. Try to not do anything while being introduced to them. Most people will shake my hand and say their name. Because of this, almost attention goes to the handshake for that second. Then the name goes in one ear and out the other. But if focus on them saying their name, it really helps. Immediately repeat it back to them again. Hi, I'm Mr. Sandal. Hi, Mr. Sandal, nice to meet you. I always associate their name to something else, like a quote or another person or character or whatever. Like I recently met a guy called Jeff and remembered his name by thinking of Wake Up Jeff from the Wiggles, and the more obvious, my name is Jeff from 22 Jump Street. I'm not very good at remembering the names of foreign people. Who knows, the brain works in mysterious ways. Why can I remember the long-ass Japanese names of 100 different characters from 20 different anime series, but can't remember even the first name of someone I just had an hour-long conversation with? When you have no friends, once you know someone new, you will remember their name 'cause you got no one else. Sad face. It's an acquired technique. When the person says their name, instantly associate it with someone you know that has the same name or a word that rhymes. Peter/Peter, Kyle/Dial, Karen/Baron, etc. If it's important to remember the person's name for future reference, write it down after they leave. Here's an actual tip: write it in a note on your phone. I have a list of people I interact with: coffee shops, stores, dog parks. When I see them again and forgot their name, I reference my list and bam, they're impressed, or sometimes creeped out. I remembered their name. Side tip: to dampen creepiness, I often add some uncertainty, like, your name is Joe, right? So they just think I have a good memory. It sounds silly, but it's the same trick as for learning another language. You have to start by imagining what a world would look like if you actually knew whatever it is you don't know, in real life, in a reasonable way. Picture it in your head. Hear it in your head. Imagine it in real life. Then you just have to do that. It's why so many people don't learn in class, but do learn watching TV shows. particularly young boys/girls. They can imagine themselves talking to characters, and therefore have a more practical use than someone who just doesn't want to fail an exam. So when you meet them, imagine yourself saying hello to them again, using their name. It's as simple as that. If you're this kind of unsocial to begin with, there are multiple benefits to practicing mock introductions with people you just happen to be looking at. It forces you to think how you look like to others, and thus a wider context of the situation. Stop tuning them out to mentally prepare yourself to introduce yourself/make small talk and actually listen to what they're saying. Remembering names is often pretty easy. The problem is a lot of people don't even catch them at all to begin with because their attention is elsewhere. First step: actually give a shit about other people. I typically do not, which is why I don't remember names. Say whatever name comes first in your mind convincingly enough so the person in front of you doesn't question it. I can't say I use any special techniques to remember people's names. One tip I would suggest is to simply try to associate the face with the name. So, mentally, while listening or conversing with the other person, try to link the name with the face. Another tip would be to simply push the person into the name category, e.g. you meet John Kane, therefore it's another John or another person with last name Kane. This works particularly well for uncommon or rare names, e.g. mental conversation. This is the second Sarah Beth I've met in a decade. The mental exercise of putting the new person into a name category not only engages your brain to focus on the current person, but also reminds you of other people with the same name, so you revisit those names and people, and practice makes perfect. One more thing I can suggest is trying to associate different features of the individual to their name, e.g. Jens, who was tall, skinny, and worked for Google, who I met in risk assessment workshop. As you may have noticed, these suggestions try to build a character with multiple layers, so even if you forgot one thing about them, you could remember them through another part of their personality/life/trait/etc. It even becomes easier since their name will be on the tip of your tongue, and as you navigate through their traits in your mind, you start remembering their name better. I guess the biggest motivator for me is the fear of disappointing the other person and embarrassment I may feel, even though it's probably mostly in my head, if I forget their name. So, sentiments do keep the sorcery alive within me. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean I don't forget. It's just that remembering them becomes easy. I've been living in the same flat for 20 years and I still struggle to link my neighbors' faces and names. I've been playing soccer with 3 to 4 different groups of people for a long time, and it has taken me ages to stop referring to people, in my head, by their appearance or by their kit/playing style. So it's usually the blonde lady who lives on the 4th floor, skinny striker or stocky Portugal Cristiano Ronaldo. That, or I know the name but couldn't pick them out of a lineup. I always repeat their name when shaking their hand. Hi, I'm Tom. Nice to meet you, Tom. I don't know, I just do. My son is 2 and does this as well. Maybe it's genetic. The key is actually listening when they tell you, and then repeat it back. If the stuff related to the name is memorable, you'll remember it. Example, meth, because it shows up in my country's news at least twice a month and an everyday problem here. I have an amazing mnemonic device, by which I have memorized all of your names. Baldy, your head is bald. It is hairless. It is shiny, it is reflective like a mirror. Your name is Mark. You're welcome, smiley face. Write it down in a notebook and repeat till you hate the name. Pay attention. When he says his name, for example John, say that your name is also John. So when you see each other again, he greets you, like hey John, you remember that his name is John. You're welcome. Be attentive and always have a presence of mind. Repeat the name in your mind, but try to think in the sound of their voice. That way when you hear their voice again, it will trigger the memory of their name. As soon as someone tells me their name, I try to say it in the next sentence. Helps reinforce it in my mind. For me, I can usually remember someone's name right off the bat. But if I'm struggling, I listen to other people talking to them to hear if they say their name. If that doesn't work, I had this extreme case the other week where I was in a cabin with a bunch of girls and still didn't know the name of one of them after 3 days. Ask for their Instagram. It works every time. When they introduce themselves to you, say their name back to them. I started doing that and I've always remembered who people are. I met a CEO of a large company, and at big meetings with people he hadn't met before, he would draw caricatures of these people during the meetings and write down their names. He swore by this technique for his memory. Thing is, I only choose to remember people who I think are important to me. Otherwise they can get a steamroller dropped on them by a vampire for all I care. What I do is make a funny comment about them and their physical appearance in my head. I don't know why, but so long as that comment is hilarious, it becomes easier. Although, it may make you an asshole, at least it won't make you a forgetter. I keep a list in Notepad. My wife practices this sorcery. I still can't figure it out. My skill is forgetting a name the moment I hear it. Someone probably said this for me: it's the name with the face being unforgettable. I forget a lot of other things, but names, it's peach and cake, as Ricky would say. I put too much emphasis on people's names and its association with their personality to begin with, so that definitely plays a part. But it's crazy how well I remember strangers' names and not a lot of things I should remember, like biographical info about the girl I'm trying to talk to. Say I'm talking with a woman at a party and my husband walks over. It's natural and polite to now introduce the woman to my husband. But what happens when I've forgotten her name? Given how bad I am at remembering someone's name, my husband and I have a code that we use to let the other one know that we don't know the name of the person that we are talking with. If I don't know the woman's name, I purposefully exclude my husband's name while introducing them so my husband can introduce himself and she, herself, me, to the woman. Oh, this is my husband. Have you met? My husband, knowing I forgot this woman's name. Hi, I'm John. Nice to meet you. Woman, hi John. I'm Kate. If I do know the woman's name, the conversation would go. Me, to the woman. Oh, this is my husband, John. Have you met? Me, to my husband. This is Kate. My husband, hi, Kate. Nice to meet you. Kate, nice to meet you too, John. It might sound obvious, but just that little code of me purposefully not using my husband's name when I don't know the name of the person who I'm speaking with has saved me from quite a few awkward what was your name again moments. TLDR, If I introduce my husband to someone as my husband and don't use his name, he knows that I don't know the person's name and he introduces himself. So now we both know the person's name. You just have to care. So much of the time when people are doing introductions, they are busy thinking about the next thing to talk about. They forget to really listen and remember their name. Use their name in the next sentence to really drive it home. I'd say give a fuck about what the person is saying. Easier to remember the conversation than rewind back to the name. I don't remember names as an identifier, but more as a descriptor of personality. That way if I forget someone's name I can usually guess it because I've mapped it in my head to the way they are rather than just a name. Sometimes this backfires. If multiple people have the same name, that's kind of tricky, but usually works. Hang out with them for about an hour after meeting them, but instead of saying dude or anything like that, say their name. Ask for their number, create a contact. Say it 3 times out loud back to them in the next few sentences. I have been in sales for 15 years and am bad with names and this trick works. Pleased to meet you, Charles. Now Charles, what brings you in today? Great. And Charles, what are you driving now? In large groups of people, priorities decision makers. Well, you/leggy bald. When you first meet someone, you/leggy bald, if you make an effort to repeat their name, you/leggy bald, at least a few times in your first conversation with a new person like you/leggy bald, well then, you/leggy bald, you can remember their name more easily, you/leggy bald. Does that make sense to you, you/leggy bald? 1. It used to be easier. As I have aged, it has become a little more difficult due to the sheer volume of names and faces. At first, I did not employ any strategies because I would just remember. 2. The first strategy, I make it a point to say their name aloud when I first meet them and multiple times if possible. 3. Next strategy, I associate their name/face with something else memorable. For example, the other day when I met someone named Aziz, I associated him with Aziz Ansari. 4. Due to number 1, sometimes I take the association a step further. Aziz Ansari was on Wait Don't Tell Me. He has a Netflix show, etc. The more thoughts I can associate with a name/face, the more likely that I will remember them. Hope this helps. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. I was told you should imagine their nose, or some other equally random feature, telling you their name when you're first introduced. Repeat their name after they tell you and once more at the end of the conversation. Then once more 1 minute later. I remember people's names and the first time I met them. Doesn't matter how long it's been. It's a fucking curse. It freaks people out when it's been 10 years and you call them by name and tell them how/when you met. I've learned to just pretend that I don't know them. Half the time I actually do remember their names, but I get all nervous that I might be wrong, that I look like I don't. I'm a teacher and I have a party trick. I can learn a whole class's names in 20 minutes. I'm not really sure how I do it. I guess I just keep looking at the class and repeating their names under my breath, and probably the biggest thing is every time I address them I start by saying their name. It's the biggest fucking power move when you dismiss them at the end by reciting their names. An issue I have is once meeting someone at a gathering, think friend of a friend/acquaintance, I might not engage with them much, leaving myself with few opportunities to remember their name by using it and speaking with them, forging that connection in my mind. Then I see them 7 months later, forgetting their name. Introvert problems, I guess. I have an emotional attachment to people I really want to remember. I'm a teacher. You get good at it after 5 or so years. I'm good with faces but horrible with names. I can't even keep it in the I know the first letter lane. People who remember names after hearing them once, how do the rest of us learn this sorcery? The real question. LOL, I don't. I ask for a business card if I'm in a formal setting, and if not in a formal setting, it's usually okay to just say, "Sorry, I forgot your name." Man. Fuck. I don't know. I remember lots of shit, but I'm only average with names. I'll repeat someone's phone number, birthday, and food order back to them forever, but I'll get their name wrong half of the time. Say it over and over again out loud and in your mind, and associate a certain characteristic to the name, so it's easier to recall. I associate the name with an event I remember. I'm not exactly sure how I remember, but I love busting it out of the end of the conversation when they think I've forgotten, like, "Okay, thanks Nicole, you have a nice weekend," and they hadn't said their name for a good 20 minutes. Maybe I do it just to let people know I'm hearing and actually listening to all the shit they're saying, so they better not fuck up. I write it down in my phone notes as soon as possible. Writing helps me remember things. Plus I can always look back if I know I may run into them. The toilet. I immediately try to link their names with something directly related to them, even if it's just their appearance, for the time being. Get someone to play Russian roulette with you every time you forget. I keep repeating the name inside my head. Be bad at faces, it'll free up room in your brain for the name. Kidding, but that's legitimately my problem. My husband's co-worker asked who I met at the company party this week, and I rattled off the names of every single person I met in the order I met them in, but would I be able to recognize them if I saw them again? Nope. For me, it's about both separating the name out and associating it with something else. For example, if you get introduced to a bunch of people, Hazel, this is Tom, Dick, Harry, Big Dave, Little Dave, Peter, and Stormageddon, Dark Lord of all, everyone, this is Hazel, you're probably going to find it more difficult to remember their names than if you meet them one at a time. Even if you do remember the names themselves, it's going to be a lot harder to attach them to the right person. Try to remember each person individually, rather than as part of a series. Beyond that, it's good to link the name with some characteristic of the person. You're probably not going to get Big Dave and Little Dave mixed up, but Tom, Dick and Harry might blur into one. Once you've associated them with a trait, though, it's easier to discern them. Once you've got into your head that it's Tom with the hair, or Dick with the laugh, or Harry with the chin, you'll always have a trait in mind. You know the person with the chin must be Harry, because Tom with the chin just doesn't sound right, plus, that way you always have a visual cue to spur you on. This is my weakness too. Everyone I meet just turns into buddy or dude. I remember names and numbers, nothing else. 1. Get a pen. 2. Get a note. 3. Write it, you genius. Name repetition, personality mirroring, and never breaking off a handshake. I relate them to someone I know well who has the same name. or a celebrity. I think that it's partially an innate ability. Sometimes repeating the person's name out loud helps, but some people's brains are just wired to remember faces better. I'm this way as well. I have to spend several outings with someone before I can remember their name permanently, but I can recognize people between events just based on their face. I remember people faces, so by remembering their face I associate it to their name. I have a good visual memory. I got that skill by being a car lover when I was a kid. At age 8, my uncle jokingly asked me what car his friend had. I replied with VW Passat with tinted rear lights. I now know how to differentiate a lot of cars, vehicles from WW2, and people. Also, I now take it personal if I can't remember a name. It's natural. I add something about them to their name, even better if it starts with the same letter. Wearing pink. There goes Pink Robert. I'm a very visual person, so I just ask them to spell it. If I can see the name in my head and match it to the face, then I'll remember. This is kinda like me. I remember names but I don't really remember faces until I have some kind of emotional connection with a person. I can recall people's names when other people say their names, but I always have to ask for a description of their face or how I know this person. I'm wondering how can I recall faces more than just names. Recalling names are easy when the stranger may have more of a personal sentiment to you. Like, having something relationship with that person. Our brains are wired to recall information with an emotional connection. Repeat it back to them. Also associate them with a famous person of the same name. If only I could remember other useful things just like names. Shit, I've been married to what's her name for 46 years lol. Oddly enough, I'm pretty decent at it if I'm drunk. Sober, though, I may as well have never heard your name in the first place. I associate them with their appearance/voices. For example, I know that this guy's John because he looks/sounds like, well, him. Yes. Please advise otherwise, Redditors. I'll get introduced to someone and then by the time I'm done shaking their hand and saying, "It's nice to meet you," I've already forgotten their name. Create a mental image of that person with the name written above their head. That's what I do, although I have visual memory, so there goes that. I found out that if I actually try remembering names when people tell me and pay attention, I will remember. All the names I don't remember are because I automatically think I won't remember and don't even try and listen to the name, so of course I can't remember. Hope that makes kinda sense. I usually associate their name to a detail they give me on our first chat, like, oh, that's the John, the guy with the stutter. Or that's Diane, she told me she has a cat. I'm so bad at remembering names in movies and TV shows. It actually is context dependent for me, in the sense that I remember the names of pretty girls easily and refer to guys as that dude. Remember their face, not their name. I quite often forget the names of people, but can immediately remember their name if I see their face. Since faces are more uncommon than names, the information tends to be unique and difficult to overwrite. I associate the face with the name. Impossible. Names just click for me, for some reason. However, I am physically unable to remember who that name belongs to. Imagining the way the name is spelled directly after meeting someone is something I've always naturally done. Maybe that helps?